Well, you've got to love Super Bowl week. Convention, bringing all the national minds, a lot of coaches, former head coaches, players, former players, all into one spot. And with Brock Purdy being a hot topic of discussion this offseason, we're getting a lot of fuel to the fire of what I consider a fake debate. But when it is a fake debate, then it is important to hammer home the truth. And how about John Gruden? Listen to this, courtesy of our friend Brad over at the SF Niners.
A lot of different opinions and evaluations on what Brock Purdy is and he isn't. As a coach, offensive guru, what are your thoughts on Brock Purdy?
They should build a statue of him in San Francisco. He covered their ass, man. They gave up 3 first-round draft choices to get a guy they got rid of. You guys have him in Dallas. And this guy's the last pick of the draft. He's taking you to the Super Bowl. He's taking you to the brink. He deserves to get paid, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, he'll just leave it at that. He took it pretty damn far, I'll say that. He mentions Trey Lance, not by name, but points out that the 49ers used 3 first-round draft picks to trade up and then to select Trey Lance, who's not even with the 49ers anymore, still under contract with the Cowboys through March. That would have been a complete disaster for the 49ers had they not stumbled into Brock Purdy at pick number 262 in the 2022 draft. This whole debate surrounding Brock Purdy and whether or not he should get paid and exactly how much he should get paid is a fake debate this offseason. Amongst people who actually know football, there's no question. John Gruden obviously knows the game. Joe Montana obviously knows the game. You talk to 49ers players, Fred Warner obviously knows the game. Warner even seemed a little bit annoyed at this discussion that seems to just be popping up online from people who aren't connected to the game and don't know the game very well. They just want clicks for their channels. But Fred Warner said, I know the game, and you can trust me on my Brock Purdy take. If you think that you know the game better than Fred Warner or John Gruden, fine, but you're wrong. And your opinion does not mean opinions are not born equal. Well, let's put it that way. Opinions are not born equal. People who know what they're talking about have an opinion that is more worthy in this situation. And John Gruden definitely has an opinion that is more worthy in this situation, talking about Brock Purdy. This is a great time to talk about quarterbacks because Purdy obviously a point of discussion at the Super Bowl on Radio Row. Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, the 2 Super Bowl quarterbacks who are going to square off on Sunday when the Eagles face the Chiefs, both also have a lot of discussion surrounding them, and people love to compare the quarterback position. So if we combine Purdy, Hurts, and Mahomes into one discussion, we have the 3 most recent Super Bowl quarterbacks. And they all have massively different setups. But 2 of these guys, the guys playing on Sunday, have already been paid, have already received their big contracts. And in a way, they offer frameworks for what the 49ers can and will do with Brock Purdy moving forward. I think first things first is that you hear the glowing words of John Gruden, you hear the glowing words of Joe Montana, Fred Warner, countless people who know what they're talking about. I think it's really, really important to emphasize that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have echoed those praises. In fact, I would say the opposite might be true as far as order goes. The praises of Shanahan and Lynch have been echoed by the likes of John Gruden, Fred Warner, and others. But the 49ers' primary decision makers have gone out and just loaded praise, and not just praise on Brock Purdy, but also loaded and projected confidence in the investment that they're about to make. So the debate surrounding the investment, the debate surrounding the potential contract for Brock Purdy exists only on the internet, maybe in some sports bars, but it doesn't actually exist within the room of 49ers decision makers, which is why I call it a fake debate. Anybody who knows anything about how this game works, anything about the quarterback position, anybody who has a shred of honesty and integrity surrounding this discussion is saying the same thing about Brock Purdy. They're saying that the 49ers are going to pay him a very large contract this offseason because that's how the business works when you have a quarterback who's very, very good. And Purdy has been the most efficient quarterback in the NFL since he entered the league in 2022. It is brutally dishonest to pretend that Brock Purdy should be subject to a different procedure and a different set of rules than the quarterbacks who have been paid a lot of money, who have accomplished far less than him. It is brutally dishonest. It is disrespectful to the meritocracy of the National Football League. It is a meritocracy in the NFL. Players are paid based on what they have done, not based on where they were drafted. And when we talk about what they've done, I think this is a great, great opportunity heading into the Super Bowl to talk about the different setups that Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts have operated under to reach these respective points of their careers. The Mahomes discussion is particularly fascinating because it is representative of the incorrect stereotypes that have proliferated the discussion for these quarterbacks. Look at this. This is from NFL Next Gen Stats. The most passing yards behind the line of scrimmage in a single season since 2016. These are the top 5 seasons of the most passing yards behind the line of scrimmage. Patrick Mahomes this year has 851 passing yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's the second in the NFL, behind only Baker Mayfield, who had 967. But even though Mahomes is prolific behind the line of scrimmage, I mean, we talk about check down merchant. So people allege about Brock Purdy. Well, even though this is a really prolific year of check down merchant action for Patrick Mahomes, it's not even his highest total. 2021, he had over 1,000 yards behind the line of scrimmage. 2018, he had 966 yards behind the line of scrimmage. 2023 had 931 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Nobody is saying that Patrick Mahomes is a bad quarterback because Andy Reid is setting up a lot of easier passes behind the line of scrimmage. No, that's just how football works. You need a good play caller, and Andy Reid has been a hell of a play caller. But if you look at this objectively, you can say that Andy Reid might be the biggest engine of what the Kansas City Chiefs have been doing, especially in the years where Patrick Mahomes is throwing a lot of screen passes. You have to give Reid the credit that he deserves. You can't just pick and choose where you give the coach credit. I feel in the case of Brock Purdy, there's a lot of, that's all Kyle Shanahan. Well, statistically, when you compare his situation to the one with Mahomes and Andy Reid, there's actually more of Andy Reid at play in the Reid-Mahomes dynamic than there is of Kyle Shanahan at play in the Shanahan-Purdy dynamic. There are so many fascinating stats, and I think that these comparisons that I'm about to bring to you could help guide the 49ers into setting up better structure, not only for Purdy, but for the rest of their offense moving forward. As far as behind the line of scrimmage throws go, last year, Patrick Mahomes, 21.4% of his attempts went behind the line of scrimmage. That was the third highest rate in the NFL, behind only Tua Tagovailoa and Bo Nix. You know who was number 4 as far as passes behind the line of scrimmage? Josh Allen. 19.8% of his throws were behind the line of scrimmage. So those were 4 quarterbacks who I think are all considered good quarterbacks. Obviously, Mahomes and Allen on a different level than Tagovailoa and Bo Nix. Bo Nix protected as a rookie by Sean Payton. Tua trying to get the ball out quickly, almost at all times with Mike McDaniel. So it's not surprising to see him at the top of the list. But all those guys are at or above 20% throw rate behind the line of scrimmage. Meanwhile, dead last in the NFL in terms of throws behind the line of scrimmage, Brock Purdy, 9.7% of his passes were behind the line of scrimmage. In terms of attempts, Patrick Mahomes attempted 135 passes behind the line of scrimmage, which was the most in the league. Brock Purdy attempted only 44 passes behind the line of scrimmage, which was one of the lowest numbers in the league and the lowest percentage. He was the only qualifying quarterback who threw less than 10% of his passes behind the line of scrimmage. Up until about week 13 or week 14, Brock Purdy ranked last in screen passes attempted in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes ranked first in screen passes attempted in the NFL. So that's just on the surface, it's really clear that the job asked of Patrick Mahomes this past year was much easier than the job asked of Brock Purdy this year. And we'll talk about Jalen Hurts and play action and RPOs in a little bit. But on the surface, the numbers are absolutely staggering. And it's this NFL Next Gen Stats graphic that shows that this is not just a one-year thing for Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid has been setting things up for Mahomes, and that is the point of football. Bill Walsh and Joe Montana were great together. Mike Shanahan and Steve Young were great together. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have been great together. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy had a great 2022 together, had a great 2023 together, but they did not have a great 2024 together. And the more data that we look at, the more it's very apparent that Brock Purdy was doing what he could with what came onto his table. We've got a little piece of 49ers news here. Gus Bradley is going to be joining the 49ers coaching staff. How about this? Mike, do you see this? We got a quick little 49ers update that we got to pivot to. Look at this. Greg Papa just texted this to me. 49ers play-by-play announcer. Longtime NFL coach Gus Bradley is joining the 49ers coaching staff per sources. Bradley had Robert Saleh on his staff in Seattle and Jacksonville, now reuniting with the 49ers. Really, really cool update for San Francisco. So let me get this up on the screen. We'll get back to this Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts discussion in a little bit. Sometimes we get breaking news right during the middle of the show. So Gus Bradley, we talked about Gus Bradley as a potential backup candidate for the 49ers defensive coordinator spot. Bradley was Saleh's boss. I mean, Bradley is the original architect of the Seattle Legion of Boom defense as the defensive coordinator. Obviously, Pete Carroll worked with Gus Bradley, but this was the early days in Seattle, 2009 to 2012, before Bradley left to Jacksonville. Robert Saleh then went to Jacksonville, followed Bradley to Jacksonville to be his linebackers coach. But Gus Bradley knows what he's doing in the context of this 4-3, cover 3 Seattle-style defense, which is why we talked about him as a potential hire for the 49ers on the staff. So now you've got a guy with head coaching experience, defensive coordinator experience, architect of the scheme experience that's going to be joining the staff. This is according to Tom Pelissero. Bradley, 58 years old, and he's reunited with Robert Saleh. So the 49ers are building a superstar defensive staff. Robert Saleh was the big fish that they brought in. Gus Bradley was on our shorter list of candidates. And this could be the backup for Robert Saleh in case Robert Saleh does leave after just 1 year. This can really, I think, set the 49ers up for some continuity, because you would think that Gus Bradley's next job would have to be a defensive coordinator job. I don't think this is somebody that would be able to hop from an assistant under the defensive coordinator back to a head coaching job in just 1 year. So the continuity question probably solved here. You know, KJ Wright was a player under Gus Bradley in Seattle. He's a rising coaching star. It's a lot to ask of anybody to follow the path of DeMeco Ryans. And even DeMeco took a few years to be ready to be the defensive coordinator. KJ Wright's only been in coaching here for 1-2 years. So I think KJ would probably need a little bit more seasoning. So now you're getting this whole Seahawks style reunion with Gus Bradley, KJ Wright, and Robert Saleh on the 49ers, trying to bring back the greatest success. I wrote up on the San Francisco Standard today. The state of the linebackers piece is out. It's a good time to talk about this one. Look at the illustration that we got for the state of the linebackers piece. That's Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and the pairing that Robert Saleh has been adamant about. See if I could get this into the title right now. SF hiring Gus Bradley. Boom. I think I changed the title on YouTube. Did that work, Mike? Let me know. Brandon Staley will likely be gone off the 49ers staff. And